Hey Mini enthusiasts, how you doing? I hope you've had a great week. It's just a little bit of an update on PL at the moment. The cylinder head is, well, by the time you see this, actually hopefully I'll have the head back, but at the moment the cylinder head is off at the engineering shop, just having head skim reface. I've asked them only to do a light skim on it. They put a straight edge on it while I was there, and there was barely no detectable warp in the head, but like you've seen in the previous videos, I think the face is a little bit rough, so it'd be nice just to get a light skim on it. But I don't want them to do a big skim. I'd really like to keep the compression ratio as what it was intended to be, so it's stamped as having 21cc chambers, so obviously skimming it will reduce that a little bit, but I'd like to keep it as close to standard as I can. What it does give me a good opportunity to do, yeah, it's a bit frustrating having to wait, but it means I can get the rest of the bits and bobs cleaned up and prepared and things like that. So it's all too easy, you know, get a head gasket job like this. It's probably only about an hour to strip their head off the car, and it'll probably only be about an hour and a half to put it back on again. But the devil's in the detail, really. You really need to take the time and prep everything, make sure everything's all right, clean up all the surfaces, because what will happen if you don't do that, you either won't find the root cause for the head gasket failing, or if you don't clean it up properly, you'll have problems with the gasket not sealing, because maybe an uneven surface or just contamination between the surfaces. Or you can have other problems, you know, if you get a blocked up oil way or something like that, that can cause serious problems. So you're seeing this week's, or today's video actually, I've refaced the block. So obviously it's very, you know, take the block out, send it to an engineering shop is a hell of a job. I'll put a straight edge on here, doesn't seem to be any problems. And I've just refaced it by hand, just using a flat sort of rubbing down block and some 80 grit wet and dry. It's quite important that you make sure it's all done evenly, so you don't do one area more than another. So you'll see I was going in each direction and giving it the same amount of rubbing down on each area. Also, once I've done that, clean it back off, blow out the stud holes, so make sure there's no rubbish down in the stud holes, because that'll stop the studs tightening down properly. Make sure they haven't got oil and grease down in them, so I've cleaned them out with the brake cleaner as well. Push rod holes, make sure they're all clear. There's an oil channel, oil gallery at the back here, which brings the oil up to the cylinder head, up to the rocker bar in the top, so blow through that, make sure it's okay. And the rest of these are water channels, so again just making sure they're all clear, there's no corrosion in there, and it's fine. So I'm quite lucky on PO actually. This block was a brand new new old stock Rover block at 99,000 miles, so it's only done 4,300 miles, something like that. And I think you can see when you look inside, actually that has definitely not done many miles, that block, so there's not much corrosion there at all. Someone commented on my last video actually about running it up with just plain water in there. Not quite sure why you do that. I won't be doing that. I think it's antifreeze. You've got to keep in mind there's a corrosion inhibitor as well. So I did actually wash this block out with a hose, and within about half an hour of me washing it out, there was rusty water in the bottom of here. So I dabbed that, managed to get it all out again. I've just poured some antifreeze in there for the time being while it's sitting there, just to stop that corroding at the bottom. Also going to replace this plastic connector up here. So if you remember in one of the previous videos, I've replaced this one already because it broke. So I'll do that one while we're here. But like I say, it's really important to find out what the root cause of the problem was. So everything checks out there. You'll notice I've got the water pump off, and I'll show you something interesting with that. So there's the water pump off the car. I was really in two minds whether to do the water pump actually, because it looks pretty good. There were no leaks from it. A bit of leak from the bottom hose here, which is one of the reasons I've replaced it. But the pump itself, bearings feel fine. I've got a feeling that was replaced actually when the engine was done. So it's not done many miles, this water pump, but I looked on mini spares and new water pump, it's a high capacity one with a plastic impeller, so the impeller's much lighter, it gives better flow, puts less strain on the bearing because the impeller's lighter, and I think it was 25 quid, so it's not really worth mucking about. But what's really interesting, or really glad I found it actually, was just inspecting this water pump. Like I say, I took it off, just looked it over to make sure everything was okay. And if you look down the main sort of inlet here, can you see right at the end there, there's a big chunk of aluminium casting that's sitting in the way of the impeller, probably waiting to break off, or certainly that is definitely going to be impeding water flow. So that ain't great. That's poor manufacture, that. So like I say, I don't think there's anything wrong with the water pump, and I could just break that off, redress that hole and reuse the pump, but I don't think I'll bother, to be honest. But that just goes to show you how crap some new parts are sometimes. So like I say, that's been on there for a while. I don't think it would have been causing too much of a problem, but would have certainly been restricting the water flow at high engine RPMs. And just finally, before we get into the video itself, so I apologise, I waffle on a lot, I do. So we've got the new header tank there. Again, that was a bit of preventative action there. The old header tank hadn't failed yet, but it was looking pretty bad. And this is one to look out for on all MPIs, I think. So this is the thermostat sandwich plate, so I've just given that a bit of a clean up. Obviously in the previous video, like I said, I found a problem with the temperature sensor, so I ordered a new one of them. But this housing here in particular, this pipe here, I think is just the bypass pipe back to the header tank. That was, I would say, 80% blocked up, so you couldn't see through the, well, you could see through the inside, but there was a large restriction in there, which was just corrosion. So obviously I stuck a screwdriver up in there, broke off the corrosion, and in the end I think what I've done was I've got a, I think it's a 5.5mm drill bit, and just drilled up the inside of there. So that is actually a little bit corroded, and there's even a hole in it around the corner there. Probably could do with a new one. I think that'll go again, to be honest. When the hose goes on that, the hose obviously comes right up to the end there, and the Jubilee clip and the rubber will be pretty much covering that. So I've just put cure rust on that, which will neutralise the rust, and obviously once there's antifreeze in it, it won't rust any further. But I would imagine all MPI Minis, they're all probably starting to fail a little bit in that, like that now. But I did looked at that recently actually, and I don't think you can get them anymore. You can't get new ones. DSN Classics do a very nice shiny alloy one, but again I want to try and keep it as original as possible. So and these, I've just refaced the surfaces here, so that's dead easy to do. Just a bit of wet and dry paper on a flat bench, and then just rub it up and down, backwards and forwards. So yeah, I'm just waiting for the bits to turn up from mini spares as well, so fingers crossed they should turn up tomorrow. But like I say guys, I can't emphasise enough how important it is to do the preparation work and the boring bit in between, really, of stripping it down and putting it back together. I don't know exactly what's caused the head gasket to fail on PO at the moment, but there are probably 4 or 5 things which probably all attributed to it failing. One of them, I think, like I say, their original head studs, the head's been off at least 3 times and retorqued. That's not going to be great. It looked like the head studs had been thread locked in there, or certainly some compound on the bottom of the studs, which from my reading is not great, because that can cause the gasket to separate once you tighten it down. And the head studs themselves, they did look a bit worn actually. The threads certainly looked like they were biased one way where they'd been tightened up. I think the actual head gasket itself was possibly over tightened, but I can't be actually 100% sure of that. I should have torqued it when I took it off just to make sure. You saw me testing the thermostat, which wasn't quite right. We had a restriction on the overflow on that housing there. We got a restriction in the water pump. So yeah, it's difficult to say really what caused the failure, but it could be any one of them, it could be all of them. But if I hadn't looked, if I hadn't done the sort of investigation and cleaning up in between, I'd have never have found those bits. So like I say, really important, if you have a head gasket failure, don't just slap a head gasket on it. Head gaskets don't fail for no reason. Okay guys, just to be on the safe side, I think while I'm here, I'm going to do this bottom radiator hose as well, because it's a little bit perished in places, and I think I'll put a new high capacity water pump on it just to be on the safe side. Hose is mad on an MPI, isn't it? It's like an octopus. Well, that probably doesn't help thing, guys. I'm just cleaning up the head here, but try and make sure we don't get anything down in the oil jackets or anything like that. But round all of these stud holes, there's I reckon the studs might have been thread locked in, which apparently is not a great idea. to flush the rest of the cooling system now, so I won't video this. Take it outside, put a hose up the inlet of the matrix out the other side to get that cleared out, and then we'll go inside the block here, try and flush that out. So that's why I've covered these holes up here, because otherwise the water will come up the water jackets into the oil and then it'll make a right mess.